extreme, like rape, like constant, like power taken away or fired because of not giving up sexual deeds.
Right.
But I also feel like in the community or the culture that we grow up in, like this is maybe like a regional thing, I don't know. But we had to figure out how to navigate your femininity in a way that doesn't offend the male who's approaching you.
Offend or tempt?
Offend.
Okay.
So imagine, I mean, I've had this body for like since I was 12 or something.
Me too, girl.
So
me too.
So being approached, and I don't know if like we would go walk to the store or like do stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they would ride up, the grown men, drug dealer, whoever.
Yep.
Would roll up and they'd be like, "Oh, hey, Shawty," you know, or not Shawty, but Redbone or whatever they were calling, whatever. And we had to figure out how to like gently say, "I'm too young," or "I'm not interested," because of fear, because of like, they could snatch you into their car.
Yes.
They could say B word. Like, you would say the real word, but I just say B.
I do not curse
B
like
word.
that. But you're right.
You know, F you, all that, because that's been happening.
Like being mean or like offensive.
So it is a very slippery slope when it comes to that, because, and then I asked a counterpart of mine and who is not black. And she said the only time she had to deal with this was when she was around black women. She had never experienced that her entire life. So I was like, what do you mean? So when people say like, were you sexually harassed? And I was like, every day. Like, that's not a thing. You just move on.
Right.
But how much of that are we really internalizing as, okay, let me not be this way because I don't want to do this, or it's survival. Like, so no, I am not Me Too in the way that is being explained, but I feel like every woman.
Right, because Me Too is about being the silence breaker who, you know, there are silence breakers that are speaking out against sexual violence and harassment.
And probably a specific target, right? Of who did something to you, or, you know.
Right.
So there's nobody I could point a finger at and be like, they did this horrible thing. But I'm like, really, your life, a woman's life, is Me Too. And every woman should be able to relate to that, right?
Right. And you're right. And it's funny that you mentioned that whole, when you were younger and you're like, I'm too young, because I remember a specific instance. I was 11.
Yeah. Me too.
No,
I'm just kidding.
You know, we are pretty much shaped very similarly.
Yeah, like women.
And, you know, so yeah, I had curves at that age. And I remember, and this little guy was only like 16. However, as an 11-year-old, 16 is very scary.
Yeah.
And I remember he was like trying to talk to me, and I was like, I'm only 11. Like, I remember saying that. But, you know, unfortunately, I don't know if young ladies, these little girls, are speaking up, you know, against that. Not to say that it makes it right or anything, but I just know, I don't know. I think with the exposure and the access that younger girls have these days, a lot of times, some of the children that I've encountered in just in the schools that I've been in, they like portraying themselves as older.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there's a couple of times I remember in my life where it was like, oh, you know, he's cute. I could say I'm like 13, or I could say I'm 15, but they were probably like 18, 19, 25. Like, who knows? It could have been, I don't know. I didn't know those people.
Yeah, you really didn't know their ages.
They were rolling in cars, rolling up in a car, and I'm riding a bike. So, anyways, I think the thing out of it was, I remember, and I talked to my sister about it too, because she was there. She was 2 years older than me. I remember us making sure that we were on point when it came to, we're like, okay, they're going to roll up. Remember, be ready, because you don't know. And in a society that could be violent, you don't know what could happen if you say the wrong thing.
That's
so
very
like,
true.
If I said, get out my face, I'm just a little girl, versus, oh my gosh, you know, playing small, dull your shine. Don't think you're like, have power or anything, because I will show you that you don't, versus, okay, let me just get out of the situation and keep moving. So I get it. I know that it is not in any way compared to, I know people who have been raped. I know people who have been sexually molested and abused. And no, I'm not Me Too in that sense, but I do understand having to change the way that you are in order to appease someone else.
Yeah. That's definitely something that I think you're right. I think the majority of women.
And do we have to teach our daughters how to do that? Or do we need to teach them that, no?
Right. And again,
survival skills?
I think it is survival skills, unfortunately.
I think it's more teach the guys.
It should be. But as mothers of daughters, but I don't think, here's the thing. I think all of that goes back to a certain level of self-respect and self-confidence, because I promise you, little innocent Ann never taught me,
right,
don't blah, 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 make sure when boys come up to you, like, she didn't teach me that. I do remember the talk, and I don't know if you ever had this talk, but I do remember the talk of, if a boy ever is trying to do anything to you that you don't like, kick them in the private area. Like
my dad.
Yeah, my daddy taught me that too. So I guess they were teaching us things like that, and we didn't realize that was a part of survival. Never had to do it.
Right.
But I do remember being a 7th grader and a boy grabbed my butt and I slapped the shiitake out of him.
Ooh.
I did. And I'm just like, just being in the school again, I just see so many girls like they like that attention.
Gosh. Yes, me and the head basketball coach went the F off on this boy and girl who were straight up, we're coming in from a fire drill and they're straight up wrestling. And I went off on the boy, and then he comes running out of nowhere, hoarse voice and everything, going off. And I was like, we need more men to be able, and all the male teachers I know, that makes them so mad when they see like a boy and a girl, and the girl's laughing and the boy is still manhandling her. Like,
yes.
And I get so upset with the boy, but I get more upset with the girl, because I'm like, you're giving the wrong idea, and you're not setting boundaries on what is acceptable and what's not.
There you go. And I think you just summed it all up. We have to teach girls, our little girls, how to,
and our boys.
Right, but I'm just thinking about, you were talking about teaching our daughters. Do we teach them survival? No. It's a part of self-confidence and teaching them how to set boundaries and how to have that self-respect, because setting boundaries is just having self-respect.
Right.
At the end of the day.
Appropriate
interactions.
Male-female physical interactions. Because if you've never had a hug from a male person, then you might be welcome to have a headlock. You know what I mean? Like, that's the only touch you've ever had from a male. If you don't have like a father or anyone who's ever kind of played around and like had fun with you, you wouldn't really understand if it's wrong or if it's right. Or they would understand the extremely wrong, but they probably wouldn't understand the whole gentleman.
There you go. Yeah, that's true. And I think, like you were saying, it does go back to teaching our young men. And this is not a shameless plug, but it just happens to go with it. But in my little boy book, that's coming out in 2018, I do have a page where it's talking about the way that you treat a young lady.
Right.
There's I have a picture of a little boy opening the door for a girl, and, basically the paragraph is talking about how you treat girls with a kind voice and gentle hand. And those are the words. And
that's important, because sometimes people say, treat them how you would treat your mother. And a lot of them may not have that kind of respect for their mother.
And, it's so funny that you bring that up, because last year, oh goodness, I was at a middle school last year. So this little boy hit a little girl in the jaw at PE. And of course he got written up for it. And so I go in, I look at him and I said, you know the rule about hitting girls. 6th grade boy. He said, no, I don't. And I was like, what do you mean? I said, you mean to tell me you don't know the rule for hitting girls? Literally, this is what this child says. No, I don't. I know I watched my uncle beat up his women, and I saw my daddy hit my mama. And I'm like speechless.
And the parents always said, somebody hit you, you hit them back.
Well, nobody hit him. Like, he just hit his example was not that men don't hit women or boys don't hit girls.
Right.
You know, that was his norm.
Right.
And at that moment, I had to really back up and punt
yourself.
because
Yeah.
I had to start over from teaching him that this is not acceptable behavior. You boys are usually, you know, there are some girls who are super strong. So I'm not saying that because I could knock somebody out when I was with these hips and squatting. I used to squat and max 400 pounds on my squats.
Okay.
So not taking away from the strength of women and girls.
Yeah.
But, you know, normally, physically, a male is stronger than a woman. Female. So, them females.
Female routes.
Yes. So, what's wrong with
Not to make light of the Me Too. So, bringing it back around, I'm just so surprised that so many men are getting fired from their jobs. I'm not surprised. I just almost, I don't want to be that person, but I feel like it's almost a trend at this point to be like, oh, they came forward, so they're fired. They're like, all of the businesses are now jumping on board with this whole, we don't tolerate sexual harassment. And I'm like, when did that become okay? I mean, when did that start taking, like, was it with Trump elected?
I feel like it's a backlash of the Trump.
Was it with the Hollywood thing though? Like,
but here's the thing: which one came first, the Trump grabbing the peas, or the Hollywood thing?
So, do you think that because of the Trump getting his thing, that the
That's what
people
I
in
think.
Hollywood who are so against him are like, well, we don't tolerate it over here, or we're speaking out of over here because it's something that is not being addressed there?
I think so. That's exactly what I think. I think that this is a uproar. This is just the backlash of, so nobody gave a freak about this man saying this out loud, and now this man runs the country.
So now they're taking their individual stand.
Yeah, we're all about to stand up.
I agree, and I'm here for it. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm happy that it's here. I'm happy but I feel like every time I turn on the radio or get on, you know, anything, it's always now so and so is being like Matt Lauer, Russell Simmons.
Yeah,
you know, and they didn't do all that with Bill Cosby. Like, after Bill Cosby, it wasn't this backlash of all this, but it could have kind of planted some seeds.
Right. I think that probably also had a little bit in it too.
To shine the light on this does happen in this industry. Now with like Terry Crews, did you hear about him?
No.
He was saying that like this really prominent, correct me if I don't know the details. I just remember his story was that this man in Hollywood actually groped him in front of his wife. And he came forward. So his name has been in the news a lot. People were calling him out and everything. But like, he literally was like, you know, me too. So.
Right. It says that he's a part of the silence breakers. Like, he is one of the silence breakers. So, and that's the thing. We do get caught up in thinking that men aren't victims of this, but I do feel like the whole point of this Me Too campaign is that, unfortunately, women are sometimes treated as second-class citizens, and they
but look
are
at
not
Kevin
taken.
Spacey. I mean, he got fired from House of Cards, Netflix, all that, and he was doing gay things, so gay harassment.
Oh. I mean, so it is widespread, but I think that definitely it happening to women. A lot of women have already felt that they wouldn't be taken seriously, or they wouldn't be, you know, no one would believe them if they came forward. So,
or that they have to bend to power, just like that little girl walking down the street being approached, that you have to bend or change to the power that's present.
Right.
So that sets precedence for everywhere. And if, you know, you don't have that confidence from home or somewhere else, you would feel like, even in the workplace, whatever someone's saying they have to do because they're in power, that you need to do it in order to keep your job, or, you know.
Right.
And that's a woman thing. I don't think that's a male thing, because women aren't necessarily always the boss in these
That's true.
You know what I mean? Like,
so it's just operating in that fear.
Yes, back to the fear. Our favorite.